So now we're going to go to the topic of the day, which is return line leaks. Anybody want to take a guess why return line leaks can be so costly?
Water. You're losing water.
So water is very expensive. However, it's sort of a triple whammy with return line leaks. It's three different reasons at once that are kind of leading up to just massive costs. The first is, as we just said, water is very expensive. When there's a return line leak, the water is going up. You know, if it's a steam building, is turning into steam. It goes up, it comes back down in the return line, and then usually it's underground. So the water's leaking out underground. You don't see any leaks, and you're losing all this water, and then you have to replace it with city water over and over and over again. That's expensive. The second reason this is expensive, and this is the primary reason it really costs so much money, is that when you're replacing hundreds of gallons of water in a boiler, that new water has to be heated from 40 degrees or 50 degrees, whatever that temperature is, all the way back up to 200, instead of it coming back at, let's say, 160 or 170.
You're burning fuel to reheat all that water coming back in.
That is exactly right. So, Jason, this is why it's so tremendously costly. In a big return line leak situation, 50% of your fuel could be wasted on just return line leaks. So it's really important that you find those return line leaks and fix them. The other problem, and this is sort of the long-term problem, is that it can slowly destroy your boiler. Has anybody familiarity with how boilers work and why return line leaks can lead to boiler failure?
I don't know.
So what we just said, we were taking cold water. We're constantly taking cold water from the city. When you take metal and it's really hot, right, it expands. When you then take freezing cold water and you throw it on that metal, it contracts. And so what's happening is as you're constantly going from hot to cold, the metal is going like this over and over and over and over and over again all day long. And over the course of months and years, that can cause the metal to break. And so you'll have the tubes often in the boiler will start to crack. And that is a massively expensive thing to replace.
Yep.
So just another reason why it's critical to know about return line leaks and fix them. So I'm going to show you how we do that on the system. By the way, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions on that before I show this?
Isn't the other boiler killer with this is that you're constantly adding fresh water as opposed to what the approving one is? You're also adding a fresh load of minerals out of the city tap every single time you do it, as opposed to just when it truly needs it. If the system were leaking,
100%. Yep. So the three major reasons, and you're adding sort of a fourth, but the four are really, you're constantly putting new water in, which you have to pay for that water. It's very expensive. That water is ice cold, so it has to be reheated, which uses a ton of energy. It is causing the boiler to stretch and expand and contract, which reduces the lifespan of the boiler. And then you're getting more mineral deposits in the boiler, which means more cleanings and potential more boiler failures and downtime. So that's 100% right. So I'm going to share my screen again here, and I'm going to show. So how do you detect a return line leak? So the first thing, the way that we detect a return line leak is we don't try to detect the leak. We try to detect the water that's being added back in. And so when we do an install with Runwise, we're installing a meter on the makeup water feed. So every time new city water comes in and is fed back to the boiler, we clock it and we measure it. And the reason that this is effective is that for every gallon you're losing, you're replacing a gallon. So it basically tells you how much you're losing. Here you see ongoing return line leaks. And you'll see examples of, like, this is 119 gallons. And this one is 105, 82 gallons. These are very common return line leaks. So this is a tremendous one. We're going to go to this one, 442. Look at this. On a daily basis, this one's losing almost 1,000 gallons a day. This is tremendous waste. I mean, tremendous, right? So it's critical that you see this started October 8th, which might have been actually when the heating system turned on. But, these are the type of thing that you just wouldn't know otherwise, because a lot of the return lines are actually underground. And so when they're underground, the water just spills out underground into the ground. It gets absorbed into the foundation, into the soil, and you have no idea. And so this is just tells you that it's happening, and you can see this. This is just like absolutely tremendous. So the goal here is you really want to know when this is happening, and then what do you do when you have a return line leak? Anybody have experience with this?
I've had some situations where I received notifications of and alerts of return line leaks, and I had to get plumbers involved and found where the leak is, get a few sections of the pipes replaced with new ones, and the alerts went away.
That's exactly right, Freddie. So the first thing you want to do is do a visual inspection, right? You want to go down to the boiler room, you want to go down to the basement and see, is there actually any water, right? If there's water, the easiest thing to do is have the plumber, replace the pipe that's clearly leaking, that's visible. See how much that moves the return line leak down. If that fixes it, great, you're in great shape. If you have already fixed them or you don't see any water, it gets a little bit more tricky. And what you have to use is what's called an infrared gun. And what it does is, and a lot of boiler service companies have these, so they can usually do it. There are also companies that specialize in this. But what it does is it looks for heat underground. It does thermal mapping. And so what they'll do is they'll aim it at the ground and they'll look for basically spots where there's like a pool of heat, which is indicating that there's hot water underground. And then usually what they'll do is they'll drill, expose the pipe, replace the section of pipe that's leaking, and then you fix it. It's a pain in the butt. It's really a giant hassle. Like, nobody likes to have to deal with this, but it is one of the best return on investments you'll make in your heating system, because fixing return line leaks just saves you so much money. So highly encourage everybody, when you see that, address it as quickly as possible. Also, if you have a CSM, if you are one of our CSMs, if you don't know, if the boiler service company doesn't know what to do, they can walk them through how to find that leak. I think that's a general overview. Any other questions just in general about starting the winter? We're happy to answer questions right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my microphone was off before when you were
Oh,
talking
no problem, Donald.
the water. When you do the water monitoring, that toilet with the water monitoring, do you have to put sensor in the tenant's bathroom upstairs, or how does that work?
No, it's just a sensor that goes onto the riser in the basement.
Oh,
So,
that's it?
yes, exactly. So purposely, because we're trying to avoid getting into tenants' apartments. Also, it's significantly more costly to put devices on every toilet. And as anybody, if you use our service, everything we do, we like to have a very fast payback, right? If you put down money, we want you to make that money back within the year and then be making multiples on your money every year afterwards. So the way that we've done that is it's very inexpensive for us to snap these devices onto the risers in the basement, and then immediately you know where all the leaks are, you fix them, and you make a bunch of money back, and you just save a ton of money net. Does that make sense?
Can I still do it now, even though I didn't do it before when you
Yes,
were? Okay.
Absolutely. In fact, it's reasonably inexpensive if you already have Runwise, because we already have the control and we have the repeaters. Donald, I'll have somebody reach out to you if you're interested, and they can give you more information.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question. I don't know if you're able to see in there, in all that list. There's a building, one of my buildings that I believe would be marked as 223-225-227 East 66th Street.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so the questions you asked earlier about the return lines.
Yeah.
Let me start with how this property is set up. There are 10 buildings, 6 stories high, 25 units each, right next to each other, with 2 boilers at the center at 219, with 3 separated into 3 gate valves, 3 zoning,
valves.
3 zone valves, basically. And I have 3 Runwise apparatus at each of those valves that control the heat.
Yep. So we're looking at one of those valves here, essentially. Yep.
We're looking at this one here. Now, strangely enough, after I fixed a leak that I found on the return line, I have this unequal distribution of heat within floors and lines within the same buildings there. For example, the sensors would measure, because I've tried to put the sensors for comparison in the lower floors on, for example, in one line, and in the upper floors on that same line to compare. And the temperatures are all over. Sometimes I would get more heat on the higher floors on that same line that I would get on the lower floors, which is I can't explain that. I don't know how that would happen.
Yep.
Basically, I've tried everything I can, and I'm currently, just so I let you know, I'm currently working on repairing all my steam traps.
Yep.
At that specific section, and the other ones as well. But related to this, at that specific section, I have about 7 to 10 steam traps that I'm in process of replacing.
Yep.
We do yearly cleaning, overhauling, and welding and other maintenance as required. And eventually, still, I have the same problem. That's the reason why I joined this meeting today, is I'm hoping to find some to point me in the right direction where to look at. Just shoot if you have any questions, and I'll respond to the best I can.
So the first thing I'd say is you should definitely reach out to your CSM, whoever that is, your customer success manager, because I'm happy to, I'll walk you through some of my thoughts, but it should be interactive, and we should really dig into this and help you figure it out. And it's going to take more than probably the 5 minutes on this webinar to get to the bottom of it. So I really recommend you do that. Here's my offhand. The first thing I would do is, if you're seeing temperature variances, particularly where the top floors are warmer than the bottom floors, right? Because you would expect the top floors to be colder because it takes longer for the heat to get there, right? I would first do a visual inspection in those apartments, and I'd make sure the radiators are turned on, windows are fully closed, there's no AC units in those windows. And really, like, that's my first. And I would take a Google sheet or a spreadsheet, and I would literally systematically walk through the building, and I would mark, like, I've checked the radiator, it is working, it is hot, right? Take a temperature gun, take the temperature of it when the boiler is on. I've checked the windows, there's no AC units. I don't see anything else that's obvious, like somebody's put something over the radiator. You'd be shocked at how many times it seems like there's a major problem in the building, and it's like literally somebody has the top of their window open like a quarter of an inch, or something like that, or the radiator's turned off, or the radiator is just broken, right? So that's the first thing I would do. If you do that and you see that, for example, the one line is just totally not getting heat the way another line is, then I would look at, I think the steam trap replacement is great. I would look at master venting to make sure that the steam is moving without air blocking it in the lines. And then I would also look at, make sure there's insulation on all the pipes equally, right? Sometimes I've seen crazy things where one pipe is totally uninsulated. And so you have a pipe on one side, a riser that's going up, and it's totally insulated, and another you don't. And then the last thing is, look, if you do see one side or one piece, like, there are just areas in older buildings where it's very hard to have an impact, like the facade is less well insulated on one side and more porous, or it just gets a lot more wind or sun. But the first step is to make sure it's not an individual apartment thing, because that's really critical. And I would just make sure that is the case. And then I would go to the line. Does that make sense?
Yes. Basically, these are among the things you mentioned are among the things that we have tried, and for some reason that I forgot to mention earlier, there's this specific unit that can't seem to surpass 65, 66 degrees, even when other apartments on that same building reach. Even if I increase the boiler temperature more than I should, actually, and that unit still remains cold. This is unit 6D at 227.
Hold on, let me take
And
6B?
D as in David.
Okay. 6D, it's the blue one. Well, it's hard to see here. I go back to to February when it was actually colder. I mean, I see it on the lower end for sure. Yeah. And when you go to that unit, have you ever used a temperature gun to take a temperature of the radiator to see if it's the same temperature as, for example?
No, it's barely on. It's just warm. It doesn't reach full heat. And I know that the unit is maintained because there's staff who lives there.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about 5B, the one right below it, or 6C, the one right next to it? How are those? Are they totally fine?
They're not as bad as this, but still on the cold spectrum.
On the cold spectrum. But is it which one? The one below or the one next to it?
Specifically that D line, the top two apartments are cold.
Got it. Okay.
The first floor reaches about 73, 74 at times.
Yep.
For some reason, it doesn't reach all the way to the top, and I am out of options.
And the plumber, you've had your boiler service company come and look at that riser?
Yes. I've had valves replaced. I've had all leaks I could find replaced. I've had radiator replaced. We did everything.
Somebody just asked what type of system it is. Is it a one pipe steam system? Two pipe steam? One pipe steam. Yeah, okay.
Yes, one pipe steam.
One pipe steam, yeah. I would ping your CSM and ask them to dig into this more, because to me it sounds like the steam is not rising fully in that riser, which means there's probably air in there, and the air is blocking it as it gets to a certain point. That's my guess. The other thing you could check is if you just put the boiler on bypass and let it run, right? I wouldn't do it on a day like today. I do it when it's colder, but you let it run. After a certain period, does that radiator ever get hot? Like as hot as the other radiators? Because if it doesn't, then there may be a fundamental riser issue past a certain point. If it does, and it just takes extraordinarily long period of time, then usually you have air in the riser that's blocking the steam and making it move much slower.
Understood. In that case, I don't even want to imagine the repairs that need to be done.
It's sometimes not so bad. Sometimes it's bad, but
all right.
What other questions do people have? What can we help with or answer, or something we didn't cover?
Yeah, hi Lee. Recently, I noticed the temperature for the apartment. I got these dotted lines, and it's not showing me a number, a temperature reading. What is the reason for that?
What are you seeing instead of a temperature reading?
There's two dotted lines. Instead of a number.
It's two dotted lines.
Yeah, the dotted line location where the temperature normally shows up. It just gets dotted lines. Like today, I see nothing. I don't have any temperature reading for the apartments.
Yep.
I think you can see the same if you scroll down to that same page you are right now.
Yeah. That usually means the sensor's offline. So what I would do is first I would go to the apartment and make sure the sensor is still there, because sometimes somebody just removes it from the wall and throws it out the window or throws it in the garbage. If it is there, there's a reset button, which again, your CSM, or if you email support or call our support line, they can literally walk you through how to reset it and see if that comes back up. If not, we can get the service team out there to actually to take a look and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, because it's like today, I just noticed all the apartments with the sensor, they're all off.
That's an indication that something will happen with a repeater usually.
Yeah.
Is there any work happening in the building by chance? Somebody doing anything in the hallways or in the stairwells or something like that?
No.
Email our support team, have them take a look at it. Usually it means something happened. If many go off a line at once, it's usually a repair.
Yeah. Okay.
There are many different things that happen. You can have an electrical server.
Lee, I have a question. You guys have a particular tool to pop open the sensors, because these are very difficult to open.
They're intentionally difficult to open so tenants don't do it, but it's actually really easy with a tool. You just use a screwdriver in the little notch and it pops right
on the
off.
sides. Yeah, I got you.
Yep. It's meant to pass like the government standards, to make sure people don't tamper or get electrocuted or do other things you have to actually make it very hard to open without tools.
Gotcha.
Other questions or topics people want to cover or ask?
I see that you have on your screen the buildings and the amount of money I guess they're saving.
Yes.
I'm just curious that, we just got Runwise installed over the summer. Your company and your team that was here did a hell of a job. So thank you for that.
What's your building address? I can pull it up.
28 East 10th Street.
Not going to show much savings if we just installed it over the summer. Yeah, exactly. $0 save because there's no heating yet.
Listen, it's better than being in the negative. So.
Right, exactly. That is definitely true. Yes.
All right, guys, we're within budget. We're good.
Lee, I got a question.
Yes.
What is the normal water loss on the line per unit, or I can give you any of the building sizes that I have?
A good reference is 1 gallon per unit. Below 1 gallon per unit is where you want to be. Above 1 gallon per unit, it's likely there's some kind of leak going on.
So if I have a building with 100 units, 100-gallon water loss per what time period is it measured?
Per day.
Per day. So 100-gallon water loss per day, it's considered within the normal.
And we should fire an alert when we detect that. So you shouldn't have to sit there and look for it. We should just literally send you an alert when we think there's a leak.
Okay, but 100 gallons for 100 building, 100 apartment unit building, it's within that
range. Would I still take a look at it? I would probably still take a look at it and see if there's any leaks, just because it's right on the borderline, and maybe you can get it down to 30 gallons, right? And that's 70 gallons saved per day and all the heating required. But with that said, if you look at it and you do some preliminary like leak scanning, you don't see anything, I wouldn't overly stress about it.
Understood. That makes sense. All right. Thank you, Lee.
No problem. Other questions, topics, anything anybody wants to cover?
I guess kind of picking back off of one of my other colleagues on this chat. Some of the sensors, it shows, good reception. It gives me the temperature for the apartment, but some of them are like offline, or like the battery's dead, or whatever the case is. Is that usually something that happens, or you figure maybe one of the tenants just put the device somewhere?
It's very, I would do a visual inspection first, right?
Gotcha.
Like, unfortunately, like, you can make the best technology ever, like some percentage of tenants will rip it off the wall and throw it out, put it in
if you can scroll down on this page, since you're on my building, you see what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You see like
these two over here. I would go do a visual inspection and just make sure that they're still there. And then this is a new install, so we should not have the sensors offline.
Those two that are the 12C and 12E, I have them here. We have to install them within the apartment, so they're off right now.
Oh yeah, I see that you marked them up, but I'm saying these two, the 5C and 6G.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about the 7G and 7L? You see what I mean?
7G and 7L.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, those are just marked as, those are editable, so you can just turn them back on.
Oh shit! I mean, I don't have the capability to do that from my end on my profile. Like, I've tried it, and
that's weird. I don't know why somebody marked them as inactive. Maybe they weren't installed at one point. If you just email support and say, hey, can you turn these back on, they'll turn them back on for you.
Okay.
They can also maybe give, if whoever has the admin rights for your account is okay with it, they can also give you permissions to change that in the future.
Got you. So I will be sending an email to Dan.
Cool. You can also click just so everybody knows, at the bottom right here, and there's a little contact us. You can do this on the iPhone or on your desktop. You can literally submit a message or text this phone number or email this or call this number, whatever's easiest for you.
Got you.
Cool. A couple other things I'll just mention in case anybody is interested. We offer $250 gift cards for any referrals. So if any of you love Runwise and know other folks that don't have smart controls and are wasting money, And you're
250 per referral.
per building. Yep.
I got 10 buildings for you right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, in all seriousness, no, if you do have buildings, you can email them to me after I'm Lee at Runwise, or you can email them to whoever you work with at the company. It doesn't matter, and just say, hey, I'd love to make a referral to these people. They'll usually say, great, give them the contact information or intro them via email or text message, and they sign up. You'll get $250 per building.
Cool. Lee, don't worry. We'll split it. I got
Okay, sounds good.
you.
I'll give you 60-40, you know. Cool. Anything else anybody wants to cover? Any of the questions or any other topics? Anything anybody would like us to cover in the future? We're always looking for topics that people find interesting.
Quick question. I wasn't able to switch over from winter to summer on my profile, but again, I have to speak to the admin for that.
Yep.
So just so I'm very clear, because again, this is my first time using anything like this. You know, I guess everyone here is pretty much in a sense old school. So the heat timer is no longer useful. Yeah.
It's there as a fallback if, for example, your boiler service company just feels more comfortable, you know, doing service and using the heat timer. You can just flip our control into old control mode, and they can run it on the heat timer.
Gotcha.
But day to day, it's not. No, we're running a much smarter algorithm to hopefully save a lot more money.
Gotcha. And still with the new control and with the online app and on the website, we're able to put the system on bypass and anything else like that, correct?
Correct.
Awesome.
It's literally one tap. I didn't demo it, but I'll show you on the iPhone app. There's just a little, you know, I'll actually present and I'll show on here. So when you come into the building, you can literally put it on winter, summer, bypass, or old.
Mhm.
Bypass is basically forced on. Old control is just the old control, and that's it.
Got you. One more question. Is the system Alexa compatible?
Not yet.
All right.
But
No,
engineering.
don't do it. Don't do it, man. You know,
Hey,
she's
Alexa, turn
she's
off
everywhere. So the last thing I need is, you know, Skynet to come and take over. So I'm good.
I think that may be an inevitability regardless of what we do with Alexa, but that's fine.
Oh shit. All right.
Ali,
Yes.
one quick question.
Go for it, Fred.
I was thinking about that same building that I was asking earlier.
Yeah.
How does shutting off the boiler valve affect the steam flow in the other units on that same line?
When you say the boiler valve, you mean the valve?
The radiator valve. My bad. The radiator valve.
It should have virtually no impact. It's like if you imagine like a giant hose, and then the hose has like tiny little hoses coming off of it. Turning off one little hose doesn't really have a big impact on the giant hose.
Okay. All right. I got some weird tenants there, man. One likes it hot, one cold.
Which is fine, and for comfort, it actually helps, right? If it's too hot in an apartment, like it's a great way they can close the radiator valve, or you can install TRVs to help modulate it a little bit. But generally, it's not going to impact the system overall.
All right, that's asked.
Yeah, no problem. Great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We really appreciate having you all on. We do this every week. So there's a new topic, or every couple of weeks, there's a new topic, same time, same day. So yeah, if you ever have something you want us to cover, let us know. And as always, we're available 24/7, 365, you know, via support. And if you have a question for me or anything else, I'm Lee at Runwise. You can email me anytime.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Lee.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Interesting presentation.
Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thanks again.
Thanks.